wanted to jump in and take a look at all of the new exotic weapons inside of the Curse of Osiris expansion. I wanted to do a brief overview and kind of mini review of all of the exotics, but I'm also going to rank them worst to best. Of course, that's based mostly on my opinion, but also to do with their bonuses and capabilities and stuff like that. So you guys may feel differently, so the main point of the video will be to get a look at all of these weapons. In at number 5 then, this one was definitely a difficult choice because of some of the reasons I previously listed, but for me it's going to have to be the Jade Rabbit. I'll give you exact reasons for that in a moment, but first let's take a look at the bonuses. So it has the Fate of All Fools, chain body shots to gain bonus damage on your next precision shot and return ammo to the magazine. It also comes with polygonal rifling as well as armor piercing rounds, and finally we have Zen Moment. So since D1 it has lost spray and play to increase reload speed as well as extended mag, which I absolutely think is a shame, but of course we have less perk slots in D2. So for the exotic bonus, across all types of content, chaining body shots will give you bonus damage on your next precision shot, and of course it also returns ammo to the mag, generally a pretty nice bonus. In PvE stuff it's okay, but of course this is a low rate of fire scout rifle, so Jade Rabbit's essentially in high impact frame archetype of scout, and across the board they're just not a very popular type of scout rifle in D2. It was a pretty similar situation in D1 as well, with the exception of the fact that there was actually kind of a place for this scout rifle archetype in the PvP meta because you had bigger crucible maps with more players. You also had modes like Combined Arms where scout rifles in the low rate of fire class would absolutely shred. However, that was never really the case for PvE content, and then of course moving to D2 the PvP content is very different. You've got a lot of screen shake during your engagements, the maps are generally smaller, and it's made this scout rifle archetype generally not too fantastic, and that is the main reason that Jade Rabbit really suffers now. The Fate of All Fools bonus and what it does continues to be pretty good in the game, but in PvE content you could throw Nameless Midnight on and be generally much more efficient and effective, and it's the same story for PvP content. So while the exotic part of Jade Rabbit is pretty good, the archetype that the weapon sits in is in a pretty bad spot, and on top of the fact that this weapon is returning and has returned with some bonuses missing that would definitely be beneficial on the weapon, this is the main reason that I would put it in the 5th spot. At number 4 though, for me, I've gone with the Telesto. Of course, an exotic fusion rifle with the bonus Unplanned Reprieve, fusion projectiles attach and detonate with a delayed void blast. It also has Projection Fuse, which increases your range. We've got Harbinger's Pulse, multi-kills with this weapon immediately reload your equipped kinetic and energy weapons from reserves, and then finally Polymer Grip. Now, I actually think the exotic bonuses on this weapon are really awesome. Of course, Unplanned Reprieve, the main bonus, came from Destiny 1, and it was a really good bonus there as well. So basically, when the projectiles attach to enemies from this weapon, they'll only deal a fraction of the normal damage you see from a fusion rifle, but then they actually stick to the enemy and later explode. You can kind of spread these across multiple enemies, you know, enemies might bump into other enemies and then blow them up as well. Another thing that's different in D2 though, is that you can attach the projectiles to surfaces and they'll actually stay there for quite some time. And now they'll actually auto-detonate when things walk near them, so you know, if you put them on the floor and a load of ads walk out, they'll actually explode, which is really cool. You know, if you're in a particular encounter and you know something is going to spawn in a certain place or come out of a door, you can kind of play around with this and it's pretty fun. Comparing this to something like Merciless, of course, that's probably going to do an absolute ton more damage. That's not necessarily what this weapon is about, although it does do pretty decent damage. With this, it's kind of about possibilities, you know, you can play around with it, it'd be fun and effective at the same time, and if we get those bonuses and modifiers in certain content back, you know, the ability to bump up how much damage this thing does, void burn and everything like that, and the fact that this is still a fun PvP weapon, I think it's definitely cool that this weapon's returned. In at number 3 though, it's going to be the Colony, and me placing this as number 3 may tickle a couple of folks who might not agree with me. Like I said, it's based on my opinion and you guys can feel differently, let me know below, but the Colony comes with Insectoid Robot Grenades. This weapon's grenades are insectoid robots that chase targets and explode close to them. It also comes with Linear Compensator, high velocity rounds, and then we've got Serve the Colony. Insectoid robot grenades quickly repopulate the magazine from reserves while the Colony is unequipped, so essentially a cocoon bonus, and it also has composite stock. So basically, this is a grenade launcher with tracking. If you fire a grenade near to an enemy and it hits a surface or a floor, it will kind of scarper along the floor, and it does have a cool exotic animation, although it's kind of difficult to see in game at times. But basically, the grenade will magnetize and almost roll across the ground towards the nearest clump of enemies. And to be honest, this for me is the only reason that this is higher up in the list, because of course grenade launchers haven't been considered the most fantastic thing in the game, but this one does both a little bit of work work on improving the grenade launcher, but also making it kind of more interesting and fun. In terms of damage, it's not the highest damage grenade launcher. I'll make a quick comparison to the new raid grenade launcher right here, and you can see that there is a clear damage difference between the two. I'm not actually sure whether damage on grenade launchers is tied to blast radius or whether it's another stat. Either way, Colony isn't necessarily going to do a ton more damage than other grenade launchers, so really you are utilizing it for its tracking potential. And then there's the fact that, you know, it's kind of fun seeing where you can fire grenades and how they kind of animate towards the target. They can move over boxes and round rocks and all kinds of interesting things. Also, the fact that it reloads itself while it's stowed is definitely an additional bonus. So the main vote for this weapon for me is the fact that it's fun. In PvP as well, it can be pretty fun and pretty trolly, but while it's fun and it can be efficient, you know, it doesn't do what Merciless or the Wardcliffe Coil do for heavy weapons. Otherwise, of course, it would be absolutely higher on this list. In at number 2 though, of course, there are 5 weapons that came with the Curse of Osiris. It's going to be Prometheus Lens. So there's more than one reason for this. One of them may be kind of interesting to some of you folks, but let's look at the bonus. We have Prismatic Inferno, fires a solar trace beam and generates a damaging heat field that grows while the weapon continues to fire. It also comes with Chambered Compensator, Projection Fuse, and then we have Flame Refraction. Kills with the weapon return a fraction of the ammo used to the magazine, extending the beam's duration, and then we have Composite Stock. So the weapon's exotic bonus allows it to generate an AoE style heat field that kind of forms around the target you're hitting. And this grows over time, and of course damage scales with that as well, so it's kind of doing a similar thing to what Coldheart does really, but in a slightly different way. Of course though, right now this weapon actually has a bug, so inside of PvP, it has essentially given us that Vex Mythoclast 2.0 kind of moment. The thing absolutely shreds. It can almost insta-kill in some situations. Also, the damaging heat field will burn around corners and things like that, which is pretty crazy. I don't really have to explain it anymore. If you've been in PvP in the past few days, you've absolutely experienced this. I'm sure now that Xur has sold it as well, many of you have used it. I'm not sure whether this bug is present across all types of content, so it's hard to say whether it's actually broken in PvE stuff as well, although I imagine it probably is, and that's something that slightly concerns me because this thing feels pretty nice in PvE content right now. It feels strong, but it doesn't feel broken like it does in the Crucible, so I really hope when the fix comes that it doesn't absolutely destroy how it feels across the board, especially in PvE stuff. It's focused much more on killing multiple targets, you know, kills with the weapon return a fraction of the ammo used to the magazine, so it really wants you to make a kill and then make another kill, but of course you can keep your damage scaling, but it will do, you know, a very similar thing to what Coldheart does, although the precise numbers and damage haven't been fully tested yet. So with a combination of the fact that this seems to be a pretty good trace rifle, and of course it's one of 2 trace rifles actually in the game, but also the additional fact that it's given us a pretty interesting few days in the game because of course PvP has kind of been flipped on its head. Trials right now is just like a laser tag, which is really interesting, and it has the potential to give Bungie some pretty interesting data on, you know, game modes they could create based around something like this, and potentially data on behavior of players and kill time across the board as well in PvP. So on top of the fact that it is a weapon, it does what it does, it also has been pretty influential and it has the potential to influence things that happen in the future, and that's certainly something that I don't think should be ignored. But then at number 1 we have the Crimson Hand Cannon. It's a number of reasons that I think this should be number 1. Let's look at the bonuses. We have Banned Weapon. The weapon fires a 3-round burst. It comes with small bore as well as accurized rounds, and then it has Cruel Remedy. Kills with the weapon heal the wielder, and precision kills also refill the magazine. And if you just look at the right hand side there, the stats on this thing are pretty crazy. Really good range and stability, and a pretty good reload speed as well, considering it also has the potential to auto reload itself. So this is the first true burst hand cannon, and it ends up reminding me at least of a sidearm more than anything because, you know, we've had things like Trespasser in the past. The fact that it does burst fire is definitely going to influence whether some people like it. You know, I get the feeling some players just simply don't like things like this, you know, that feel this way. They would rather fire a tactile shot from a hand cannon as opposed to something like this. However, this is the first weapon in D2 that can completely restore your health upon any kill, and that is just so nice to actually feel an exotic that like is doing something like that. Of course, Red Death in D1 was a really pretty good exotic, so having it regen on any kill just feels really good, but also the fact that it reloads the magazine if you make a precision kill also feels really fantastic. Both of these exotic bonuses will be working for you 100% of the time, doing something which is actually pretty useful. And to me, this is the grade of bonus that I think we should see on exotic weapons. You know, we want them to feel powerful and completely unique. And right now, the bonuses on this weapon absolutely do that. But when you're actually using the weapon, it does pretty well. It does feel like a burst sidearm or something. You definitely have to work a little bit to control the recoil and make sure you're landing shots. Of course, it has its limitations. It's not only a hand cannon, but also a burst fire weapon, so it's not a super long range weapon. You can move quite a long distance before you get any damage drop off on this thing, although once you reach that threshold, the drop off is incredibly severe. Every foot that you move back, you know, you'll see like 5 or 10 damage difference. Although at anything beyond medium range, you're not really going to be landing your shots because of course it is burst fire, you've got recoil to contend with. So really you want to be in close range, medium range at the most. In PvP, it's pretty fun to use as well. I don't feel like it's a weapon with a huge advantage, you know, against the meta of auto rifles and scout rifles. Also, the fact that there's a ton of flinch makes it pretty hard to use, although I did have a little bit of fun killing some folks using Prometheus lens with this thing earlier. Main reason I put this at number 1 though are those exotic bonuses. Bungie, keep bringing weapons that have bonuses like this, make them better, make them stronger. I think on the most part, Bungie need to be a little bit less afraid of things being powerful in the game. Either way, those are the exotic weapons that were introduced with Curse of Osiris, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It may have turned out a little bit long. Leave me your thoughts in the comment section anyway. If you have enjoyed it, a like is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe to see more Destiny 2 content. But for now, have an awesome day.